Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. I came here to kill the enemy on the front lines. How could I possibly stoop to handling trifling errands? Bai Xiaochun's energy surged, and as his sonorous voice rang out, everyone who heard him was shaken. All eyes burned with even greater fervor than before, with the exception of Bai Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai. Those three were inwardly cursing him. They were far more familiar with his true nature than the ordinary disciples were. The Prime Elder hesitated for a moment. Then, he looked at Bai Xiaochun and said, "Junior Patriarch, these are the orders of the Patriarchs. Stabilizing the conquered territory behind the battle lines is also very important." Inwardly, Bai Xiaochun was snickering, but outwardly, he put on a show of refusing again. The Prime Elder could do nothing more than continue to cajole him. It reached the point where the Prime Elder was getting ready to give up and back down. Then, to his surprise, Bai Xiaochun suddenly agreed. Gritting his teeth and looking very displeased, he said, "All right, fine. I don't want to make trouble for you. I accept the mission." With that, he flew up into the air. "Who is with me? Who is willing to join me as I stabilize the conquered territory and make a name for our two sects?" Virtually all of the cultivators began to cry out. "I'm willing to follow you, Bloodlord. Count me in, Junior Patriarch. I'm coming too, Sect Uncle Bai." In the blink of an eye, more than half of the group of several hundred cultivators stepped forward. Among them were a contingent from the Bloodstream sect's middle peak, who summoned an enormous blood sword, which they sent flying up into the air. It was hundreds of meters long, and radiated shocking energy. Bai Lai immediately shrank back. Master God Diviner edged away. As for Jia Lai, after the trial by fire for Blood Master, he had come to deeply fear Bai Xiaochun, and didn't hesitate to go in the opposite direction, worried that he might be spotted. Bai Xiaochun laughed heartily as he stepped onto the huge blood sword. Then he waved his hand, and numerous gargoyles flew over, along with a large number of flying ghouls. At the same time, all of the volunteers from the Bloodstream sect and the Spirit Stream sect flew up to hover around the sword. Bai Xiaochun stood there, an enigmatic smile on his face as he looked down at the ground below. "Bai Lai, Master God Diviner, Jia Lai. What are you three hiding from me for? Come, join me in setting out on this mission." Bai Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai were all shaking and cursing inwardly. None of them wanted to go, and yet the orders from their respective patriarchs had been clear. Bai Xiaochun was leading the mission, and he had the right to pick anyone he wanted to go with him. Bai Lai wanted to argue, but he only got one word out of his mouth before Bai Xiaochun glared at him. "I've been given a dharmic decree by the patriarchs." Bai Lai gritted his teeth and then flew over to the sword, depression gripping his heart. Master God Diviner and Jia Lai were howling inwardly, but they knew they couldn't escape. Having no other choice available, they flew over and joined the team. "That's more like it. All right, let's go." Bai Xiaochun laughed again, then flicked his sleeve, sending the enormous sword, and the several hundred cultivators with it, flying off in grand fashion. Bai Xiaochun had never felt so impressive. He sat cross-legged at the tip of the huge sword, looking around at the countless gargoyles and refined corpses, and then at the surrounding cultivators. That, coupled with the sight of Bai Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai looking so depressed, left Bai Xiaochun feeling very proud of himself. It seems that joining the war effort really was the right decision, he thought. Even back in the Spirit Stream sect and the Bloodstream sect, I never got to show off like this. Who would ever have thought that I could do so right here? With that, he pointed his finger straight out in front of him. "Sect nieces and nephews, come with me as we dominate the profound Stream sect." One of the Bloodstream sect disciples was particularly clever. When he saw how Bai Xiaochun was in such high spirits, he edged a bit closer to the sword and yelled at the top of his lungs, "The Middle Peak Blood Master has infinite magical powers." Quite a few of the other surrounding cultivators were shocked, and even Bai Xiaochun looked over at the young man in astonishment. The young man seemed a bit embarrassed to have so many people staring at him, and he even started to blush. Just as he was thinking that he had gone a bit too far with his flattery, Bai Xiaochun threw his head back and laughed uproariously. "Don't say things like that in the future. I'm an upright and frank person, and definitely not a big fan of flattery. Now, take this medicinal pill." Bai Xiaochun was actually very pleased, and his facial expression didn't match his words at all. In fact, he seemed to be encouraging such behavior as he threw over a Tier 3 spirit medicine. The young disciple was very excited, and seeing that Bai Xiaochun was encouraging him, he raised his voice even louder and said, "That's how we truly feel. It's no flattery. The Middle Peak Blood Master has infinite magical powers. The other Bloodstream sect disciples' eyes went wide, especially when they saw Bai Xiaochun give a reward of some spirit medicine. Their eyes began to burn with passion, and they too joined in to call out, "The Middle Peak Blood Master has infinite magical powers." Over 100 people were calling out the same thing, and it made Bai Xiaochun feel wonderful. Coughing dryly, he handed out quite a few medicinal pills as a reward. Of course, the 100 or so cultivators from the Spirit Stream sect weren't very happy about what was going on. Glaring at the Bloodstream sect cultivators, they also began to cry out, "The Spirit Stream Heaven Dao expert can shake the whole world." Bai Xiaochun was so excited that he was shaking. His eyes shone, and his heart surged. Slapping his bag of holding, he sent large quantities of spirit medicine flying out. The disciples of the two sects all understood what was happening, and they clustered around Bai Xiaochun, yelling at the tops of their lungs as they flew along. "The Middle Peak Blood Master has infinite magical powers. The Spirit Stream Heaven Dao expert can shake the whole world." Only Beihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai simply gritted their teeth. They held Bai Xiaochun in complete contempt, and refused to resort to fawning flattery. Not even if they died. Bai Xiaochun was very pleased, but also felt that he should be a bit more humble. Waving his hand, he said, "All right, keep it down, guys, keep it down." And it was in this grandiose fashion that he proceeded along through the profound stream sect territory that the two sects had already conquered. Before long, the group reached a valley that housed a cultivator clan which had once been a part of the profound stream sect. Once the invasion began, they surrendered, and yet, many in the clan were still loyal to the profound stream sect. Although they put on a show of complying, they secretly hated the Bloodstream sect and the Spirit Stream sect. As of this moment, the Patriarch and other clan members were currently discussing their next move. The Spirit Stream sect has pushed things too far. They used to be allies of the Profound Stream sect, but then they betrayed them. HMPHH. And then there's the Bloodstream sect. They're all a bunch of devilish cultivators, killers by nature. Sooner or later they're going to be punished by the heavens. Even as they sat in the hall, cursing in righteous indignation, a shocking pressure suddenly began to weigh down on them. Then, a cold voice rang out into their ears. "Everyone come out immediately to offer greetings to our Bloodmaster." Immediately, all of the cultivators' faces fell. The clan's patriarch was in the mid-foundation establishment stage. Face twitching, he strode out of the hall, followed by his fellow clan members. Moments later, an enormous, blood-colored sword appeared up above, surrounded by more than 200 cultivators of the Bloodstream sect and the Spirit Stream sect. Standing on the sword itself was Bai Xiaochun, surrounded by roaring shouts that echoed like thunder. "The Middle Peak Blood Master has infinite magical powers. The Spirit Stream Heaven Dao expert can shake the whole world." The people from the cultivator clan were shaken as they stared up in shock. Meanwhile, Bai Xiaochun's gaze swept over the valley. His mission was to scour the regions behind the front lines to find any stragglers from the Profound Stream sect. Furthermore, he wasn't to just randomly travel around looking for such stragglers. He had a jade slip that identified 37 cultivator clans who were suspected loyalists, and might be harboring such individuals. According to the initial investigation carried out by the Spirit Stream sect, there were suspicious aspects to all 37 of those clans that needed to be examined further. As for whether they ended up being spared or wiped out, that was up to Bai Xiaochun's judgment. Thankfully, the jade slip had a marvelous function that allowed the person holding it to detect fluctuations that would point directly toward any member of the Profound Stream sect. Seeing the grand display of glory and power in front of them left the cultivator clan shaken. After taking a deep breath, the clan's patriarch clasped hands, bowed, and said, "Greetings, Bloodmaster." Bai Xiaochun didn't respond. The heavenspan Dharma eye on his forehead opened, and it was as if a curtain had been swept aside. He saw through all barriers within the valley, and quickly noticed that there was a necropolis hidden underground. Within that necropolis were 8 people seated cross-legged as they healed themselves. Although Bai Xiaochun had never seen them before, based on their wounds, their clothing, and the fluctuations of Profound Stream sect magic on them, he was sure who they were. Instantly, the jade slip in his hand began to glow brightly. Bai Xiaochun looked down silently at the valley. After the tempering he had undergone in the Bloodstream sect, he had become capable of acting ruthlessly, of cutting people down like grass. There weren't very many cultivators in this clan, and as for the people in the necropolis, they were all injured. With a simple order, he could wipe out the whole clan and the stragglers from the Profound Stream sect. After a moment of silence, he said, "You people already agreed to surrender and offer allegiance to the sect alliance. Why are you doing this? His heaven-span Dharma eye began to shine as brightly as a sun, unleashing intense control power which instantly pierced all the way into the necropolis underneath the valley. The 8 injured profound stream sect cultivators in the necropolis all began to tremble, and blue veins bulged out on their faces and necks. Hoarse shouts erupted from their mouths, and yet, their bodies weren't under their own control. Struggling the entire time, they reached up and then smashed their hands down onto the tops of their heads. Popping sounds rang out as 7 of them coughed up blood and then toppled over, dead. However, one of them, an old man, struggled free. Blood oozing out of his mouth, he shot out of the necropolis, an expression of shock on his face as he sped off in the opposite direction. In response to the sudden development, expressions of shock and terror appeared on the faces of the cultivator clan members. As for the patriarch, his face went ashen, and he began to sway back and forth unsteadily as if he were about to pass out. Before the old man from the profound stream sect could get very far, Jia Lai shot after him in pursuit. Before long, a miserable shriek rang out, and then Jia Lai returned with the man's head. Murderous aura bristling, he hovered next to Bai Xiaochun, looking down at the group in the valley and licking his lips as if he was imagining drinking their blood. Jia Lai wasn't the only one, cultivators from both of the sects were doing similar things. Silence filled the valley, and the bitter cultivators' despair grew more intense. This is war, Bai Xiaochun said, and there is no right or wrong. There are only different positions. Take this as a warning. Follow our sect alliance. At the moment, there is no better option for you. With that, he waved his sleeve, and the blood sword began to fly off into the distance. The cultivators of the 2 sects cast cold glances at the cultivator clan before flying away. After Bai Xiaochun left, the cultivator clan stood there, feeling like they were in a dream. They had just been on the threshold of the gates of hell, and had somehow survived. Their hearts were still pounding with fear. After a long silence, the blank look in the eyes of the patriarch transformed into determination. After looking around at his fellow clan members, he saw that many of them wore expressions of gratefulness. That man, he thought, must have been the legendary Bai Xiaochun. He truly is a chosen. A single look from him killed all those people from the profound stream sect. He could have crushed us, but instead, let us go. He threatened us, but at the same time, treated us well. Instead of causing us to hate him, we ended up feeling grateful. Heh. If he keeps doing things that way, he'll reach amazing heights. The old man gritted his teeth, and suddenly waved his right hand. Sword light erupted out, instantly slashing off the heads of 3 of his fellow clansmen. It happened so quickly that the 3 victims didn't even have a chance to react. Henceforth, he announced, the Hanyan clan will follow the Spirit Stream sect and the Blood Stream sect. Those 3 were inextricably linked to the Profound Stream sect. By killing them, we sever all the old ties. Let that serve as a warning to any other Profound Stream sect sympathizers. If I hadn't stopped the war between the Spirit Stream sect and the Blood Stream sect, then it wouldn't have been long before the Profound Stream sect was hunting for stragglers just like I am now. Bai Xiaochun sighed and looked around at the cultivators from the 2 sects. He suddenly realized that they were looking at him in a different way than before. They seemed more passionate, and even more respectful. The way he'd killed the Profound Stream sect stragglers, and then dealt with the Hanyan clan, caused quite a few of the cultivators to approve of him even more than before. Even Beihan Lai's attitude seemed to have changed somewhat. There was something strange in his eyes when he looked at Bai Xiaochun. As for Jia Lai and Master God Diviner, they also glanced over at Bai Xiaochun with odd looks. Bai Xiaochun smiled. He was aware that he had grown up quite a bit, and understood certain things much better than he had before. In some situations, he would do things that he didn't necessarily want to do, as long as it meant protecting his family, his friends, and his sect. My shoulders aren't broad enough to hold up the heavens. But I can certainly support my sect, my family, and my friends. Eyes shining brightly, he unleashed the power of his cultivation base, sending the blood sword rumbling through the air even faster than before. As it whistled along, they passed one cultivator clan after another that had surrendered. Rumbling sounds filled heaven and earth, and countless heads turned to look at them as they passed. When they found Profound Stream sect cultivators, Bai Xiaochun didn't actually have to do anything. The cultivators of the 2 sects would fly out to handle the situation. When it came to the cultivator clans involved, he didn't treat them all the same. Based on the observations he made, and his own judgment, some got the same treatment as the Hanyan clan, but others ended up being wiped out. That was the best way to cow the local populace and stabilize the conquered territory. It was also the only way that their forces on the front lines could continue to advance safely. Soon, word spread about what Bai Xiaochun was doing, and the cultivator clans began to prepare for his arrival. Slowly, the search for the profound stream sect stragglers started to get more difficult. One option was to just destroy every clan on his list. However, that could destabilize the entire region behind the front lines. After all, the cultivator clans in question were not to be underestimated. There was a reason why the armies of the Bloodstream sect and the Spirit Stream sect hadn't tangled with them during the initial invasion. Furthermore, the complete and utter defeat of the Profound Stream sect and their subsidiary clans was not the ultimate goal. The Spirit Stream sect and the Bloodstream sect wanted to absorb their power to strengthen themselves. 3 times in a row, they encountered cultivator clans who had completely sealed off their clan headquarters. No matter what Bai Xiaochun said, or how angry he got, they refused to even respond to him. Thankfully, some of them offered up gifts to him, which he begrudgingly accepted. Bai Xiaochun was starting to feel very down. Looking at the mission Jade Slip, he frowned. The Jade Slip mentioned 6 particular cultivator clans regarding whom concrete evidence had been gathered, proving that they were not only harboring profound stream sect cultivators, but were also planning insurrections. I don't get it. If the patriarchs have definite proof, why don't they just send people to wipe them out? After thinking about the matter for a while, his eyes lit up, and he slapped his thigh. Now I understand. Damn it, how come I'm so slow on the uptake? Obviously the patriarchs are rewarding me by giving me a chance to extort some loot. After I'm finished extorting them, the sect will send people over to destroy them. Ha ha ha, that's definitely what's going on. Having reached this point in his train of thought, Bai Xiaochun was more convinced than ever that he had just been muddle-headed before. He even decided that the blackmail aspect was an important part of his mission. The patriarchs are really great. Of course they want to reward me. Although, they could have just said so. There was no reason to be so vague about it. Feeling pleased, and looking forward to what was coming, he led his group of 200 or so cultivators toward the next cultivator clan. The following day, an emerald green mountain rose up in front of them. Glittering lights surrounded the mountain peak, which was obviously a powerful defensive spell formation. He could immediately tell that this clan had done the same thing as the previous few clans, and had completely locked themselves down. Standing there on the huge blood sword, Bai Xiaochun said, "Shuangguang clan, I, Bai Xiaochun, have come on official business." Before he could even finish speaking, rumbling sounds echoed out, and an enormous figure rose up above the mountain, a giant made of pure light. The giant's eyes were closed, as if it were sleeping. However, moments later, a rumbling voice filled the air. "Bai Xiaochun, the Shuangguang clan has sealed itself off to the world. You're not welcome here." Immediately after the thunderous words echoed out, the giant slowly faded away, and the mountain went quiet. Obviously, they really had sealed themselves away. Bai Xiaochun wasn't very happy about being interrupted, but when he thought about the gift that would surely be coming moments later, he brightened a bit. Clearing his throat, he said, "I know you're completely sealed. But I can't just leave empty-handed. How about this? Why don't you?" Before he could finish, he was interrupted again. "Screw off, huh?" This was not the reaction he'd gotten from the other clans. Furthermore, he'd been interrupted a second time. He was really starting to get mad now. "Are you really cursing at me? I never said anything unreasonable, did I? Look, I have a lot of people here with me, and we traveled a long way to get here. Why don't you screw off?" The voice sounded even more enraged than before, and echoed out like thunder from the heavens. "Fudge!" Bai Xiaochun exclaimed. He had been interrupted 3 times in a row, and by this point, his fury was burning hot. How could this clan be so vile? Not only did they refuse to allow him to inspect their clan, they also refused to give him gifts, and even cursed him. Looking around angrily, he said, "Sect nieces and nephews, this enemy is a crafty one, so we have to be even craftier. If we don't, how else will we accomplish our mission?" Beihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai all chuckled coldly inside. The Shuangguang clan's spell formation draws upon all the spiritual energy in that mountain, Beihan Lai said coolly. "Even if we all attack it together, we wouldn't be able to break it open anytime soon. If we rush things, it could destabilize the area behind the front lines. What exactly are we supposed to do?" Everyone else looked over bleakly at Bai Xiaochun. Bai Xiaochun was angrier than ever that the reward handed to him by the patriarchs was turning out to be so frustrating. After a moment of silence, he gritted his teeth. "Since they're being such bullies, I think I'll have to concoct some medicine." The surrounding cultivators immediately began to tremble, and some of them even cried out in alarm. Within the blink of an eye, all 200 of them backed up by 30 meters or so. Beihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai were the fastest among the group. As soon as they heard Bai Xiaochun mention concocting medicine, their faces fell, and they backed up as quickly as possible. Bai Xiaochun's jaw dropped, and he looked back and forth disappointedly. What are you guys doing? Coughing dryly, he continued, it's for the sake of the mission. Besides, I'm really awesome at concocting medicine. People were already calling out advice. Sect Uncle Bai, there's no need to concoct any medicine, alright, Exalted Bloodmaster, let's just let this cultivator clan off the hook, okay. Everyone all started talking at once, even Master God Diviner. Snorting coldly, Bai Xiaochun waved his hand to produce a pill furnace. No way. I refuse to believe that they'll keep their doors closed to me. As soon as the pill furnace appeared, the surrounding cultivators of the two sects backed up even further. Bai Xiaochun looked at the Shuangguang clan, then chuckled darkly. Slapping the pill furnace, he produced a large quantity of medicinal plants and began concocting. The disciples of the two sects were still backing up, panting, looks of fear flickering in their eyes. And yet, at the same time, they seemed to be looking forward to the outcome. What a tragedy for the Shuangguang clan. I can't believe they dared to provoke the Plague Devil. Did you guys know that back when Bai Xiaochun concocted medicine in the Spirit Stream sect, he invoked lightning from the heavens, and even acid rain? How could we not know? Back in the Bloodstream sect, he almost blew up Lesser Marsh Peak. Bai Xiaochun had a pill furnace, a bag full of flame crystals, and plenty of plants and vegetation. Considering his skill in the Tao of medicine, he quickly produced a batch of spirit medicine. Based on what he recalled, this particular type of spirit medicine was one that he had first concocted on Corpse Peak, and could cause hallucinations. It only took a day before the pill furnace was trembling, and wisps of black smoke began to spread out from it. When the disciples of the two sects saw the black smoke, they gasped and backed further away. Even people in the Shuangguang clan itself were starting to get nervous. They had heard of Bai Xiaochun's nickname, Plague Devil, and as such, were completely on guard. Although they had never faced an assault such as this one, they were ready. Another half a day went by, and then Bai Xiaochun threw his head back and roared as he slapped the pill furnace with both hands. A huge cloud of black smoke rose up, whereupon he waved his sleeve, sending it toward the Shuangguang clan's mountain. When the black smoke touched the glittering shield of light, the shield vibrated, but only blocked about half of the smoke. The rest passed right through. However, such a small amount of smoke was negligible considering the size of the mountain, and nothing much happened. Bai Xiaochun felt more down than ever, especially when he heard the jeering calls coming from the Shuangguang clan. I always thought the Plague Devil moniker sounded really impressive. But it turns out to be just for show. Bai Xiaochun, our Shuangguang clan might have surrendered to the Bloodstream sect, but that doesn't mean you can come extort us any old time you want. You think we'll open our doors wide just because of your title? Screw off, and don't come back until you reach core formation. Bai Xiaochun was now more irritated than ever. After glaring at the Shuangguang clan's mountain for a moment, his eyes began to shine brightly. If one stream of smoke isn't enough, then I'll make 100. No, hundreds. Considering how many people were watching him, Bai Xiaochun felt as if he had really lost some face. With that, he waved his right hand and began to concoct more medicine. This time, he produced even more black smoke. However, he didn't send it swirling toward the spell formation shield. Instead, he performed an incantation gesture and at the same time, used his powers of gravity and repulsion to produce a glowing sphere. Bai Xiaochun's cultivation base had reached the point where he could prevent the sphere's power from shredding clothing to pieces. By inverting the power inward, it created a flowing cycle that made the sphere very suitable as a vessel to hold things. Now, he poured smoke into it until it was completely full. Having accomplished that, Bai Xiaochun waved his sleeve, sending the sphere shooting back toward Jia Lai. Take it, he said, not even turning his head. Trembling with fear, Jia Lai caught the sphere. Then, Bai Xiaochun continued to concoct. Astonishingly, 5 days passed in which he produced hundreds of the glowing spheres, all of them packed with hallucinatory smoke. Every sphere produced was tossed back to the group of 200 cultivators. When everyone was well armed, Bai Xiaochun looked up at the Shuangguang clan mountain, eyes bloodshot. Then he extended his right hand and pointed at the mountain. Shuangguang clan, he yelled, if you're that tough, then don't even think about coming out from behind your shield. Unleash the spheres. Immediately, the cultivators launched the spheres with all the force they could muster, happy to be rid of the terrifying objects. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of beams of light were shooting toward the Shuangguang clan's spell formation. As soon as they made contact, rumbling booms echoed out. The spheres shattered, and the powers of gravity and repulsion within them caused the shield to distort and ripple, breaking open numerous rifts. Although the rifts quickly mended themselves, the hallucinatory smoke that belched out of the exploding spheres had plenty of time to pour into the spell formation. Before long, cries of alarm began to rise up from the mountain, reaching a cacophony. Then, the mountain suddenly went silent. Bai Xiaochun's eyes went wide as he looked over at the Shuangguang clan. All of the 200 or so cultivators at his back, including Beihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai, were nervously doing the same thing, their eyes shining. This was their first time cooperating with Bai Xiaochun in the act of concocting medicine, and considering they had personally unleashed the glowing spheres, they were eager to see the results. After a protracted moment of silence, cackling laughter suddenly rose up from the mountain. Then the sound of weeping. And then roaring. All sorts of strange and unthinkable sounds could be heard. The mere sounds were enough to cause Beihan Lai's skin to crawl. Gasps could be heard from the other cultivators, especially those from the Bloodstream sect who had witnessed the tragedy of Corpse Peak. The cultivators who had actually come from Corpse Peak had complicated expressions on their faces as they thought back to past events. 3 days later, the Shuangguang clan surrendered. They didn't offer any stipulations, they simply opened up the mountain and received Bai Xiaochun. In addition, they offered copious amounts of gifts. The fear and dread in the eyes of their cultivators as they looked at Bai Xiaochun couldn't have been more clear. Those 3 days had been a nightmare that they wouldn't forget for the rest of their lives. The name Plaguedevil had now been established in the Heavencraft continent, and the stories were already spreading. Surprisingly, the cultivators of the two sects soon fell in love with this magic that only Bai Xiaochun seemed capable of providing. That was especially true of Beihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai. Bai Xiaochun was an honest and straightforward person, so he split up the extortion profits among all of his followers. Of course, he was quite pleased at how everyone seemed to approve of his tactics. As a result, he spent some time making more glowing spheres, for defensive purposes of course, until everyone had at least 4 or 5. There were different types of glowing spheres. Some had acid rain in them, some had hallucinatory smoke, some could summon lightning, and some would strike the victims with instant diarrhea. Gradually, the general attitude of the entire team was influenced by Bai Xiaochun. Even Beihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai were all subconsciously being corrupted. Time passed. 2 more months went by. During that time, there were a few injuries and casualties among the team. At one point during an inspection of one of the cultivator clans, they ran into a large group of Profound Stream sect disciples who were just about to complete a large teleportation portal. If that teleportation portal were completed, Profound Stream sect cultivators from the front lines would be able to teleport into the area and cause major problems. During the battle, the team tossed out a large number of his glowing spheres, then took advantage of the enemy's weakness to follow Bai Xiaochun into battle. The result was an astonishing and shocking victory. Although Bai Xiaochun didn't go to the front lines to fight, his name spread far and wide throughout the conquered territories. Furthermore, it wasn't just his glory that increased. The other cultivators in his team also benefited. Their ability to use long-range poison spheres, and the terrifying things that resulted, ensured that they gained much the same reputation. They fairly radiated fiendish, murderous auras as they dominated the enemy. That caused them to grow even more fervently supportive of Bai Xiaochun. They had truly fallen in love with this new style of battle that he had created. Before they realized it, they had finished their mission, and their long path of destruction had led them very close to the front lines. Bai Xiaochun was surrounded by a completely transformed group of cultivators. The 2 months of fighting alongside him had changed them significantly. Their bags of holding were packed with the spoils of war, and in addition, they had all grown very close to each other. Cultivators of both sects could often be seen laughing and chatting with each other, discussing which of the various poison spheres was the best. They even cooperated well with each other in battle. A few months ago, no one in either sect would ever have believed that such a level of cooperation was possible. However, it was a reality in Bai Xiaochun's team. Although Beihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai often had cold smirks on their faces, in their hearts, they viewed him differently than before, although none of them were quite sure exactly how. That was especially true of Beihan Lai. As he looked around at the disciples, some of whom were in the Qi condensation stage, and some of whom were in Foundation establishment, he was somewhat surprised to find that the previously injured and disorganized group now brimmed with battle prowess. It was a battle prowess that surpassed that of some of the elite cultivators that he had seen on the front lines. Considering how much they loved this fighting style, he was sure that if they did go to the front lines, they would make a huge scene. And all of that was because of Bai Xiaochun. The war had reached a fever pitch on the Heavencraft continent. Of the Profound Stream sect's 29 temple headquarters, 28 had already been captured. The last temple existed on what had once been the border of Pill Stream sect territory. There it stood, tall and mighty, the final point of resistance. It was located right in the middle of a sprawling mountain range that was even more majestic than the Luokan Mountains. The mountain range was split in half, almost as if a giant as tall as the sky itself had cleaved it into two halves with the stroke of an axe. In the resulting gap, past generations of Profound Stream sect patriarchs had paid an enormous price to erect a massive city. That city was the final remaining temple headquarters of the Profound Stream sect, and it was large enough to house millions of people. It was also protected by a vast number of spell formations. Virtually all of the surviving Profound Stream sect cultivators were holed up in the city, which everyone knew would be the location of the final battle. The army of the Bloodstream sect and the Spirit Stream sect had been pushing the fight toward the city for a month already. They had attacked with incredible force, but this was the Profound Stream sect's last stand. Even with the bedraggled remnants of the Pill Stream sect attacking the city from the other side of the mountain range, it had not fallen. The Profound Stream sect was holding out until the bitter end, hoping that the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect would lose patience and intervene. After all, the longer things dragged out in the lower reaches, the longer the Sky River Court would have to prepare in the middle reaches. Because of that, the patriarchs of the Spirit and Bloodstream sects had initially intended to use a blitzkrieg strategy to end the war as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, their momentum had stalled just outside of this final enormous city. Around the time that the two sides reached a deadlock, Bai Xiaochun completed his mission. The majority of the Profound Stream sect stragglers had been rooted out. In the process, Bai Xiaochun and his 200 followers had packed their bags of holding full of cultivation resources. By this point, the entire group radiated the air of riches and made a spectacular sight wherever they went. Eventually, they found themselves on a vast plain that was the final stretch before reaching the front line itself. Even from this distance, they could detect the fluctuations of battle, and could hear the rumble of magic being unleashed. The wind carried with it the reek of blood, and across the plain in front of them were strewn numerous corpses and patches of gore. Bai Xiaochun stood at the edge of the plain, vigilantly studying the scene spread out in front of him. There were no subversive cultivator clans here, and in fact, there were even squads of Bloodstream sect cultivators moving about here and there. However, Bai Xiaochun had developed a keen sense for danger, and could tell that by crossing this plain and heading to the front lines, there would definitely be danger. The sense of danger weighed down on him heavily, especially when he saw the distortions in the air off in the distance, evidence of the fierce fighting that was going on. He couldn't help but think of his past experiences with the Luokan clan, in the Fallen Sword Abyss, and in the trial by fire for Bloodmaster. Bai Xiaochun wasn't the only one who was on guard. The other cultivators around him felt the same, especially Beihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai. Those three had been to the front lines before, and knew that fighting with the Profound Stream sect was a very dangerous affair. If one wasn't careful, one could end up dead. After all, this was a war in which whole sects faced the threat of extermination. In the fighting, no quarter was given, and one side or the other would end up dead. At the moment, Bai Xiaochun had two choices. He could head back into the conquered territory, or proceed onward to the front line to fight with the Profound Stream sect cultivators. What should we do now? He asked aloud. As far as he was concerned, taking risks wasn't the best thing to do. If he wasn't careful, he could lose his poor little life. Clearing his throat, he continued, if we go back. Before he could finish speaking, his heart skipped a beat as intense murderous auras sprang up from the cultivators around him. Clearly, they were itching to fight. Bai Xiaochun blinked a few times as everyone turned to look at him with strange looks on their faces, as if they couldn't believe what he had just said. If we go back into the conquered territory, Beihan Lai frowned. Master God Diviner and Jia Lai's jaws dropped. Bai Xiaochun's heart skipped another beat, and regret began to rise up inside of him. However, he plastered a proud smile onto his face and stirred his cultivation base, causing his energy to soar. Looking more steel-veined than ever, he swished his sleeve dramatically and said, if we go back into the conquered territory, how could we live with ourselves? We're cultivators, right? What are we afraid of, dying? Let's go to the front lines and fight the Profound Stream sect to the death. Then he laughed bravely. The murderous auras of the surrounding cultivators erupted. Starting this day, we will fly our banner on the battlefield. Laughing uproariously, he stepped out onto the plain. Beihan Lai's heart trembled. Taking a deep breath, he also began to laugh heartily as he followed Bai Xiaochun. Jia Lai and Master God Diviner didn't suspect anything at all. Based on their experiences, Bloodmaster Nightcrypt was a violent and ruthless individual. The other cultivators of the two sects also began to laugh vigorously, and soon, the entire group was moving across the plain toward the front lines. With everyone clustered around him, Bai Xiaochun looked completely extraordinary. However, inside, he was crying. He had no desire at all to go to the frontline battlefield. Unfortunately, he felt as if he had no other choice. His hand was being forced. Thus, he led his team across the plain, gnashing his teeth the entire way. They went along for a few days, and Bai Xiaochun's nervousness mounted. It reached the point where even the slightest stirring of a branch or blade of grass would cause his heart to leap with fear. One afternoon, a group of a few dozen beams of light suddenly appeared off in the distance. It was a squad of profound stream sect cultivators, and as soon as they noticed Bai Xiaochun, their expressions flickered. However, instead of retreating, their faces filled with the desire to do battle. Roaring in rage and hatred, they closed it at top speed. People from the spirit and bloodstream sects. Fight them to the death. Die. Among the dozens of cultivators were 8 in the Foundation establishment stage. The entire group was clearly dead set on fighting. Bai Xiaochun was startled, but before he could even open his mouth to say anything, more than half of the cultivators surrounding him threw out glowing spheres. Upon reaching the profound stream sect cultivators, the spheres exploded. The profound stream sect cultivators all had different reactions. Some of them suddenly looked around blankly. Some of them howled madly at the tops of their lungs. Some of them clutched at their throats. Some of them were clearly hallucinating and started lurching about. As they were thrown into chaos, the cultivators surrounding Bai Xiaochun shot forward with flashing eyes and vicious grins. Booms rang out as the slaughter commenced. The entire process lasted for the time it takes half an incense stick to burn. Bai Xiaochun watched as his zealous followers then tidied up the battlefield, sweeping up the bags of holding and distributing their contents to the rest of the team. Bai Xiaochun was suddenly struck with the sensation that the group he led was as fierce as a pack of wolves or tigers. Bai Xiaochun took his share, and then declared, "Excellent. This is how we cultivators should be. This place is newly conquered territory. Let's clean things up here and make a name for ourselves on the Heavencraft continent." The surrounding cultivators' expressions brightened, and within moments, they were speeding away off into the distance. Half a month flew by, during which time Bai Xiaochun and his team encountered groups of profound stream sect disciples on 4 or 5 occasions. Their numbers ranged from dozens to hundreds. At first, they seemed ferocious, but after the glowing spheres were unleashed, their ranks scattered. Bai Xiaochun and his people met success in every encounter, and their killing auras grew stronger. By now, Bai Xiaochun wasn't nervous at all. He spent most of his time replenishing the glowing spheres. As they proceeded along, the fighting grew more intense. At one point, they encountered a group of nearly 300 profound stream sect cultivators. Although the fighting was fierce, Bai Xiaochun's side easily attained victory. The glowing spheres were so effective that very few cultivators could escape their effects. News spread until the spirit and bloodstream sects as a whole had heard, and even the profound stream sect forces knew of what was happening. However, because of the critical state of the war, they couldn't pay it much attention. Bai Xiaochun felt extremely relaxed. Currently, he was reclining comfortably on the huge blood sword, surrounded by shouting cultivators. The Middle Peak Bloodmaster has infinite magical powers. The Spirit Stream Heaven Dao expert can shake the whole world. At one point, a beam of light appeared off in the distance. It was a young man who held a stack of paper talismans in his hand. He was coughing up blood, and his face was ashen. Clearly, he was in a bad situation. Every few seconds, he would toss one of the paper talismans out to block the people that were chasing him. Those paper talismans were the only reason he was able to keep some distance between him and his pursuers. Hot on his tail was a group of about 200 enemy cultivators. At the head of that large group was another young man with bristling killing intent. He was only in mid-Foundation establishment, but his murderous aura made him seem as strong as late Foundation establishment. As soon as Bai Xiaochun saw him, his eyes widened. 9 aisles. Then his eyes flashed as he realized that the cultivator being chased was none other than Xu Zhaoshan. Xu Zhaoshan was so far away that he couldn't quite make out who was in the group up ahead of him. However, he could see the enormous blood sword, and sensed the unique blood auras of bloodstream sect cultivators. Without any hesitation, he shot toward them. When he made out Bai Xiaochun, he looked like he was about to weep with joy. "Bai Xiaochun," he shouted. At almost the same time, 9 aisles also spotted Bai Xiaochun. At first his eyes widened, but then they shone with joy. "I can't believe Bai Xiaochun's here. I thought I would capture Xu Zhaoshan today, but who could have guessed that we would also run into Bai Xiaochun? He's dead. Nine Isles laughed loudly as he led his group of roughly 200 cultivators forward. If they had encountered some of the elite forces of the spirit and bloodstream sects, it might have been a different story. However, he could tell that Bai Xiaochun's group was filled with cultivators of all different levels. Other than Beihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai, the rest of them were obviously disciples of no node in their sects. Nine Isles was completely confident in being able to wipe such a group out. Laughing loudly, he continued to chase Xu Zhaoshan toward Bai Xiaochun. Quite a few among Nine Isles' group of cultivators recognized Bai Xiaochun, and although they were shocked, their desire to kill him burned bright. All of them knew that this was a war of sect extermination, and they were aware that one of the main reasons why the spirit and bloodstream sects had struck an alliance was because of Bai Xiaochun. Xu Zhaoshan also realized this, and it caused him to hesitate for a moment. However, he had no other options. If he didn't join Bai Xiaochun, he would die. Indecision flickered in his eyes, and he cursed himself for getting into this situation. But then he realized that Bai Xiaochun's expression was the same as always, and that the cultivators in his group didn't seem scared at all. In fact, many of them were even looking at Nine Isles and his cultivators with contempt and derision. Huh? Xu Zhaoshan muttered, confused. Bai Xiaochun clasped his hands behind his back. Looking very proud of himself, he said, "Fear not, Zhaoshan. The Blood Lord is here to save you." Clearing his throat, he looked at the cultivators surrounding him, then waved his hand outward. To Xu Zhaoshan's shock, all the cultivators on Bai Xiaochun's team began to produce glowing spheres. Attack! Bai Xiaochun roared. The cultivators of the two sects roared in response, and began to throw the glowing spheres. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of them were flying through the air like shooting stars. Nine Isles' jaw dropped, and the group behind him hesitated for a moment. Some in the group unleashed attacks to block the glowing sphere, but the spheres seemed to be impervious to magical techniques. They began to explode, sending vast quantities of smoke out to cover Nine Isles and everyone around him. The smoke instantly reduced the visibility in the area, but it didn't stop the miserable shrieks and howls from echoing out. My stomach, heavens! I've become an immortal. Stay away everyone. Get away from me. What is this place? Xu Zhaoshan's expression flickered, and he cried out, "Corpse Peak Plague Smoke." Trembling visibly, he screamed and used all the power he could muster to fly away from the smoke, his face as white as a sheet of paper. He more than anyone was intimately familiar with that smoke, and his experiences had been especially memorable. The scene which had played out because of that smoke was like a nightmare that would haunt him for the rest of his life. To see it showing up again here filled his heart with terror. However, even as he fled from the smoke, the air began to clear. The 200 profound stream sect disciples became visible, and it was a bizarre scene. Some of them were waving their arms, some seemed drunk, some looked as ashen as death, and some were surrounded by noxious odors. Some were even hugging each other. As for Nine Isles, he hovered there trembling, surrounded by a rippling shield of light that somehow protected him from the smoke. He almost couldn't believe what he was seeing around him. What divine ability is this? Impossible. It's impossible. How could there be a magic like this? Profound fear of Bai Xiaochun rose up in his heart. He suddenly thought back to the fallen sword abyss, and it provoked a hoarse scream. Before Bai Xiaochun could even attack, he pulled out a jade pendant and pushed down to activate it. 7 colored lights spread out, along with cracking sounds. Teleportation power surged, wrapping Nine Isles up to teleport him away. Bai Xiaochun's pupils constricted. He was well aware that jade pendants which could teleport Foundation establishment cultivators off of the battlefield were extremely valuable to any sect. Virtually priceless. He quickly opened his heavenspan Dharma eye, sending a golden beam of light shooting toward the departing Nine Isles. As soon as the golden beam of light slammed into Nine Isles, he let out a blood-curdling scream. Although he was still teleported away, the control power exerted by Bai Xiaochun's heavenspan Dharma eye managed to grab onto his arm and rip it clean off of his shoulder. Even as Nine Isles was whisked away, Bai Xiaochun's followers began to attack the cultivators who had remained behind. Beihan Lai looked over at one of the Foundation establishment cultivators who was clutching at his stomach, a noxious odor surrounding him. "I remember you. You were one of the people who ganged up on me on the front lines." Grinning viciously, he closed in for the kill. Jia Lai and Master God Diviner unleashed magical techniques with murderous intent. It was the same with all the other cultivators, and furthermore, by cooperating, they ensured that their own group sustained virtually no injuries. Bai Xiaochun's team had become intimately familiar with combat and fighting. Before long, the miserable shrieks faded away, and the fighting was over. The only thing Bai Xiaochun regretted was that 9 Isles had escaped. As for Xu Zhaoshan, he was so completely shaken by what he had just seen that he forgot to breathe. Then he noticed that the cultivators of the two sects were all cooperating in the fighting. He even saw Baihan Lai and Master God Diviner working together to fight an enemy. How is this even possible? He gasped, rubbing his eyes to clear them. An hour later, the battlefield had been cleared of loot, and the group was on their way again. Xu Zhaoshan joined them, flying along next to Bai Xiaochun and offering numerous fawning words of praise. Bloodlord Nightcrypt, Junior Patriarch Bai Xiaochun, Sect Uncle Bai, what do you think about giving me some of those glowing spheres everyone used back there? Bai Xiaochun looked very pleased with himself. He felt quite a sense of accomplishment at how his team was fighting so hard and well together. It's all a big meritorious service on my part, he sighed to himself. Looking over at Xu Zhaoshan, he waved his sleeve and threw him a few glowing spheres. Take them and have fun. Xu Zhaoshan gingerly took the glowing spheres, heart-pounding with anticipation. He couldn't wait to run into some profound stream sect cultivators to use them on. He would show those profound stream sect cultivators how awesome the Plaguedevil's poison smoke was. Time flew by. Another 2 months passed. The war had been going on for half a year already, but the deadlock still hadn't been broken. Furthermore, more and more small-scale battles were being fought throughout the Heavencraft continent. Most of those battles were between groups that numbered in the dozens or hundreds. Bai Xiaochun's name spread far and wide during that time. Every single battle he fought ended in victory. Eventually, his glowing poison spheres were also becoming famous. Profound stream sect cultivators on all fronts of the battle knew of the terrifying name of the Plaguedevil. Baihan Lai, Master God Diviner, and Jia Lai also earned their own glory. As for Xu Zhaoshan, he joined the group a bit late, but also rose to fame. He fell in love with Bai Xiaochun's glowing spheres, and used them more enthusiastically than anyone else, especially the ones that induced hallucinations. As for the profound stream sect's patriarchs, and the other leaders holed up in their final headquarters, they also heard of the glowing spheres. However, all they could do was gnash their teeth. None of them dared to go out and fight. Not even the profound stream sect's prime elders and legacy echelon cultivators could shake their fear of the spirit and bloodstream sects. All of them were waiting for the final decisive battle to show their faces. Everything was reaching a boiling point. Bai Xiaochun's fame grew, and his group of followers grew more and more zealous as they wiped out the teams of profound stream sect cultivators who still lurked about. Even the patriarchs of the spirit stream sect and the bloodstream sect were shocked by how things were playing out. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.